Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Today we have Jas Uppal with us. Jas Uppal is a human rights law solicitor and founding trustee of Justice Upheld, a British-based international human rights organization. Justice Upheld helps victims of human rights violation. Jas, welcome to our show. We also have Nilesh Joshi ji with us. Nilesh Joshi ji is the founder and motivator of Sanatan Shakti YouTube channel. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Eva. Thank you.
So, Jas, I know that you have been following up Bengal post-poll violence and all the human rights abuses in happening in Bengal, particularly these days. Though you have been a very active human rights champion, if I can say that.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask, how do you see the law and order situation and human rights abuse in West Bengal?
Thank you all attendees for inviting me, and my pleasure to be here today. I have been interested in West Bengal for some time, and there were quite a few questions and concerns that came to my attention, sometimes directly from victims, and but more often through the media and on Twitter. But it was very difficult to connect with the actual victims, because unless you got the evidence, you can't confirm that or test it to see if it's right, correct, and check it out. So that's been my interest. So it's not, I appreciate the good work you and your colleagues have done relates to post-poll violence, but I would respectfully submit that violence, maybe not to that level, existed before then, before the elections. I don't think the elections was the trigger. I think it existed before, and I think that the election may have escalated it further to the attention of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So that's been my concern.
Yeah. So on 19th August, we had a judgment from High Court of West Bengal. It's a very speaking judgment. It's 124 pages long. I'm sure you would have had some time to go through it.
I certainly have. It's to be precise, it's 124 A4 size pages, and I have read it with interest. And I think it's a credit to all the people who worked on getting this far. It's extremely important that this is circulated far and wide, because to my knowledge, this is the first time somebody's actually sort of reached out to the victims, who are usually very marginalized, vulnerable and poor, and that they took their evidence, collected their evidence, and pursued this matter quite rightly. And it should happen again and again until these matters are addressed. I found the judgment quite interesting in relation to how the Indian courts work. So from a professional interest, I was extremely interested in that aspect. However, my concern was not enough was mentioned about the constitutional rights of these victims and the international human rights under the UN, United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. I think that needs to be applied. I do apologise if I'm asking their worships that to be mindful of that, but that wasn't discussed or applied as much as it should do. And I think it's a valuable tool, and not only that, for a democracy. India is a democracy, and it's got a seat on the Human Rights Council now. So therefore, we should be introducing that in our pleadings, and in the court situation, and the judges should be applying that. It should be reflected in the judgments. That would be my not criticism. I would say, as I say, I'm very pleased that somebody's actually taking note of this and doing it the right way. So the judgment in itself was relatively detailed, and it addressed the issues that had been pleaded before the court quite rightfully. And again, I think the lawyers should plead human rights and rely on the Constitution, because you've got this document, this wonderful document, the Constitution, which talks about safeguarding its citizens, and then that should be pleaded in the court cases and addressed by the court accordingly, as well as international human rights, because they are so relevant. And I think a lot of it's to do with creating awareness. So I would welcome that if that was to happen.
Yeah,
I think the judgment is incredible. It raises loads of human rights issues, although it doesn't actually spell out that they're human rights. So sorry, I don't wish to criticize the court's judgment.
I totally understand.
But I would think it should be reflected there, the human rights issues, because they are not only helpful for the victims, but for the courts as well.
So one thing I would like to add here is that they have put all the grievances can be done online, and they have made, usually in India, I do not know about Britain, but in India the process is very cumbersome. But they have made the online process so easy. Just, you will not believe that I have filed on behalf of 5 girls. I have filled the forms and it just took me around an hour. That's all. So the court and the judiciary is doing their bit in this human rights violation situation.
Absolutely, it's long overdue, if I may say so, and I'm glad, because from my understanding of India, it's you know, IT is the big thing. It's the young people work there and very progressive and everything. So it's about time it marries up with the legal system so that it can be reflected. I still would urge there to be more judges. I think there's a massive, a huge chasm where the judges are not available, and I think that's extremely important, because you have to have access to justice, you know, and see being demonstrated. I've come across cases that have been going on for 48 years. There's one case of a gentleman who's actually died. He was 105, but his case is not finished. So I think those need to be addressed as well.
So in that case, I just would like to add here that in India, we are also wanting reforms in judiciary, and Indian government is wanting to come up with Indian judiciary services, and with more judges, and actually the lack of
judges, then the system is going to be much better. So also in this judgment, there is one para which talks about the nexus of police, administration, and criminals. So what do you have to say about the police abusing their power?
I think it's absolutely horrendous. It's not the first time, I regret to say, that I've come across this. I've come across other states, not just West Bengal. I'm talking about actual cases, and the horrible reports, news reports uploaded on the social media, and also from talking to people. As you may be aware, I deal with a lot of it doesn't necessarily mean just Indians, but a lot of people from around the world, in particular South Asia, who have been working abroad, and they are in trouble. They're enslaved. They're victims of all sort of horrendous crimes and human rights abuses. And one of the things I do have to do, because that's part of the legal job, is to inform the police, or get them to inform the police. Firstly, the police would not accept my report because they said it's going to be from the victim if not from the victim, but from the victim's family. Well, that is so wrong. It's got to be whoever, wherever the person is from, it has to be reported by them. So it becomes an obstacle. So the people who want to relay that information are prevented from accessing justice and reporting a crime. And I think that needs to be addressed. One of my other concerns is the police doesn't appear to be, my understanding and my study of the Indian police force, or police services as we call them over here, is not independent. It's very much, I say it as it is, it's whoever's in lead, whoever's the chief minister, it's run by them. And I think that is so wrong. There should be an absolute separation of powers. That's what happens in democracies. And otherwise, you know, I've seen it actually in practice where, for example, a few weeks ago, I had to deal with a case of a very sad case of domestic violence. And the husband's family he was the perpetrator. So his family were a bit more powerful in terms of finance. And the poor lady, the victim of the domestic violence, was not. And the police were listening to the powerful husband, well, slightly empowered husband, than the actual victim, and that is not acceptable. You know, I've also got concerns, and his power persuaded the police to act in a certain way, which again is subject to quite a few questions that have been left unanswered. I've sent correspondence, not in just that matter, in other matters as well, to the police, as I'm required to do, as I would do here in this country. I don't even get an acknowledgement of, you know, we've received your letter, or what we're going to do, we'll let you know. And it's an expectation here in this country that would rarely happen, you know, and you can sort of complain about it. There's procedures and processes to complain about that, and I don't think that exists, with greatest respect, with the state police offices or services I've dealt with from here in India, dealing with the police. So I think that needs to be corrected. And again, if the public are getting access to the judicial system, the judiciary, the legal services system in India, equally they should have that sort of interaction and contact. It should be easy for them to contact and report. The other thing I've noticed is that you have to, sorry, I had a message to say my internet connection wasn't, I think it's sorted itself out, but you have to have a system where you can report the matter once and add to it, rather than phoning again, pleading with the officer, and then you have to relay the story again. It sort of drains you, it grinds you down. So if you're illiterate, or you're really frustrated, or you're a victim of crime, how are you going to get that across? You know, they should be given a reference number. Your case has been registered on the computer. I'm sure, you know, up-to-date computers, etc. And it's generated your case reference or incident number. And this is where you can add information, and then you can do that online as well. So I think that there's that, and I think there should be more of a presence of the police within the community to let them know, we want to help you, we are here to serve you. The idea is the police is to serve the community, not to be someone to be scared of, or a separate, or working for the chief minister, you know, their own personal army. Because I've seen a lot of that happening in these cases in West Bengal, and it's absolutely despicable, to say the least. They shouldn't be used like that. They are not the chief minister's or anyone else's, you know, personal army. So that should be challenged and addressed each time. They are supposed to be members of the community who are serving the community. And I think that should be, there should be also a procedure to make complaints. I don't know I'm not too that familiar on that side of things, whether such a procedure exists in the various police forces.
Very well said. As we all have seen actually, that this time, the post-poll violence, the women were specifically targeted. And in fact, for women, sexual assault and rape has been used as political weapon for subjugation. What do you have to say for this? And why do you think this has happened?
Well, I was quite alarmed. I've never seen anything like that. And certainly it shouldn't be happening anywhere. And it should definitely not be happening in a democracy, the world's largest democracy. It is weaponization of rape. It's simple as that. It's used in war, as we're finding out now, currently happening in Afghanistan. Women are targeted because they're easy targets, and weaponization of rape is, if I hate to say it, but it's a tool of war. That's what it is. It's happened over the centuries. It's nothing new. And they should be charged. They could be charged with war crime. This is how strong I feel about the evidence I read that came my way. I had horrendous, information and visuals, as well as video evidence that were sent to me. And I just find it absolutely unbelievable. If this was, and it should be out there, by the way, it should be out for the rest of the world to see that this is happening. I think you're blindsided as well in the respect that the media don't scrutinize this enough, and the reports are usually in the local languages and dialects. If this was printed in English and it became a worldwide issue or awareness, well, they would certainly want to know more about it, and it would be an intervention by the UN, I would go as far as to say. And it needs to be, because you cannot carry on with it thinking nobody's watching, nobody's going to do anything, because these people, how are they going to report to the police if the police are collaborating, and they are illiterate, or they're marginalized, they haven't got access to support. So I think it needs to be a sort of an effort by all the community, as the people your team did. They got involved. You had advocates, you had people on the, who could collect the evidence. So I think that's extremely important, and that's extremely powerful. They can't shut you up for that, and they should be scrutinized. There should be an inquiry. I noticed that in the judgment, well, it's not for the courts to say that, but they can direct it. They can direct an inquiry, and I think it didn't go as far as it could do, in my view, the judgment. Again, I'm not being disrespectful, but there needs to be an inquiry. How did this situation arise? It didn't happen overnight. This is why I'm saying I think in the media there was a lot about, oh, it's post-poll violence and the rest of it. I don't think it is. It's been going on for such a long time, and needs to be questioned. Why is it happening? That needs to be addressed.
Before I ask you my next question, I wanted a clarification. So when you said that UN human rights violation